Hi, folks. It's November 16th, 2023, and this is the weekly Backdrop Developer Meeting. We get together every week, mostly every week, to talk about development priorities for Backdrop CMS. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm a technical lead and core committer for the Backdrop project. I'm known as Quick Sketch on the internet and elsewhere, and I am calling in from Oakland, California. I'm joined here today by four others, and we'll kind of do around the room introductions. We'll start with Greg, and then we'll go to Luke.
Yeah, hi, my name is Greg. I'm usually in Melbourne, Australia, now joining from Greece. Very excited about anything related to Backdrop and any way that I can help. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Luke, and then Martin.
I'm Luke McCormick, sell ear on the internet. I do web project management and business analysis and things like that, and some marketing for Backdrop. I wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody here, since this is our Thanksgiving broadcast of the the Backdrop Weekly Developer Meeting. I imagine we won't have one next weekend, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Luke. Martin, and then Tim.
I am Martin Price, Yorkshire Pudding on the internet, and I'm a web developer and Backdrop contrib and occasionally core contributor for Backdrop. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, Tim.
Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim on the internet. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and yeah, and that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you to the viewers out there on the internet for watching these. We'll get started just taking a look at the world of Contrib. We had one new module come out in this past week. It's called Ticker Tape. It's basically marquee tag applied to views so that you can make views display in a marquee or ticker tape style. So that's great to see that module come through. And let's see, and then we'll go right into topics for this week. So first of all, event-wise, there's been some, I don't know, just general confusion and things happening around BADCamp, the Bay Area Drupal Camp. It was supposed to start tomorrow, but it was officially canceled, or sorry, postponed. And there's been some interest, regardless, that some Backdrop members had planned on participating there, and we may continue to participate do some like hacking or do some furthering of particular objectives this weekend, but it's really kind of unofficial. I did block out some time for tomorrow to take a look at some things, and I know in particular we were hoping to look at D7 soft landing stuff, like particularly the D2B module for making it easier to upgrade from Drupal 7 to Backdrop. So we might take a look at that, or I might take a look at that, I should say, tomorrow. But if others are interested, let's meet up on Zulip to kind of discuss just having a little sprint starting on, sorry, not tomorrow, on Saturday, the 18th. Let's see.
And I interrupt you quick, Nate. I don't know that you're in this discussion. Have you seen that Brian Price is working on that?
No, I haven't
So
seen that.
there's a private Zulip channel. I'm not sure why, or chat that was started earlier this week or last week. Irina, I think, may have recruited Brian Price to work on, do some work on D2B, and he looks like he actually has a pull request already in as of yesterday or the day before.
Oh, awesome.
So there is some activity going on there, and you might want to ping Ryan. He's in Zulip with us now. So
Okay, awesome. I didn't know Ryan was doing backdrop projects? Was he like recruited specifically for this task, or
I
do you think?
think that he wasn't, but Irina worked her magic and recruited him. I believe that he's sort of between projects right now and had some time, and so
Yep. Oh, that's great. I love it when we demonstrate exactly how easy it is to pick up Backdrop for existing Drupal developers. That he might not have been using it, but then now he's effective like within a day, which is
Yep.
awesome.
So I'm really interested in participating in this. So I'll just say that and do the rest of the stuff off call. But there are heavy marketing implications for this. So I want to insert myself in there somehow.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, this weekend, Saturday, the 18th, I'm gonna be available for doing some of that work, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Also, in terms of hackathons, Greg, you were mentioning that potentially might do something over the Thanksgiving weekend as well, which is not this weekend, but next weekend. You
Yeah.
want to kind of discuss what you're planning?
Yeah, so the plan is for the majority of the Thanksgiving Day I know that it is a big thing in the US, but for everyone else, either in the US or outside that is not celebrating and have some free time on their hands, I'm planning to spend the 23rd, 24th, which is a Thursday and a Friday, and also the weekend after that, which is the 25th and 26th. The majority of the day I will be online. I will try to keep a Zoom room call open if that's possible, or a Zitzy, some sort of conference room open, and also a chat channel open, so that we can all, like, whoever wants to drop by and dedicate time, I can help them out, do code reviews, work with them, brainstorm, and generally sprint about things that we want to see in the upcoming minor release in January.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah, that's exciting. It's nice. I don't know what it is but people. I've got time right now, and it seems like other people might might also. So it's nice. Yeah, we've been making lots of progress on core as of late. The RTBC queue is, I believe, empty except for couple of small issues. There's that one that's like renamed the filtered HTML format to basic that I honestly don't know what I want to do with that one. It's like the smallest thing where it's like we're just changing the label of the default text format out of the box from filtered HTML to basic. And I just don't know if that's a change that really delivers any value, like we're not changing the underlying machine name because there were too many compatibility things and tests that we're going to break. But I don't know, that one, it's marked RTBC, and I just don't know if I want to what I want to do with it at all. I just don't know. I kind of feel like the only reason it's still there is because we had wanted to do something more ambitious, and then it just kept getting scaled back and back until it was just updating the label. And now I'm not sure if it's worth doing at all. That's where I am with that one. So that's why I've been leaving it. I'd love to hear anyone else's opinion about that. Anybody?
Yeah, I remember what it is. I haven't touched it in a while. I focused on other things. I would have to go back and see, like, before I express any opinion, just see the what you call it, the points that people have made for and against.
Okay,
Please
let me find
say
the
issue
here.
number. Yeah. What's the issue number?
It is 1188. 1188. Opened September 14th, 2015. So it's been a little while. Oh, you know what is also in the RTBC queue now that I've got it pulled open, that is on the cusp is Removing the Grippy, issue 340, opened in 2014. Yeah, the Grippy, it's time for it to die. It's basically everyone's opinion on that. And it's funny because this hasn't been looked at in several years, but I don't know, like 6 years ago or something like that, we had a pull request to remove it, but it was still like, well, the resizable text area uh, browser support still isn't like universal, like when the pull request was filed. And now it's just kind of, well, its time is now. And so the pull request just got revived that was written like 7 years ago. And it's like, okay, here we go. Let's get it in. I mean, that's
What's the issue number?
this is issue
340.
340.
I've already added it to the agenda, by the way.
What's that?
I've already added it to the agenda.
Oh, thank you. So that's very exciting to just kind of get that knocked off. There's also a lot of other housekeeping that I've been looking at as of late. Greg, your issues for let's see, what was it? There was one that was about removing vendor prefixes like WebKit and -moz for border radius that Irina opened. Let me find that
I
one.
didn't see that one. I'll go back and check that one.
And then there was one, here it is. Okay, so this issue is 6265. Remove Moz border radius and WebKit border radius. I filed a pull request for that one. And removed the vendor prefixes for border radius, box sizing, and box shadow, because all three of those were kind of standardized at the same time. But I left in place some other ones. I remember which one it was, or I don't remember, but I found it here. Speaking of ancient issues, issue 214. Remove support for Internet Explorer. I filed a pull request for this one too, because I'm like, this is another thing where it's just like, it's time. It's like well past time. Like, let's kill it. And I filed a pull request for this one. Indigo Zella made a really good point though, in that if a module or theme has, so the pull request removes just two things. It removes it removes the HTML5 shim/shiv, which is being added to every page that Backdrop outputs, and it's totally unnecessary because it's only IE that needs it in the first place. But it also removes the support for conditional comments. And conditional comments only worked for IE5 through IE9. So that's like if IE, then include this CSS file. So that's been obsolete for quite a long time too, because even the last version of IE, IE11, didn't even read conditional comments in the first place. But Indigo Zella made a good point that I removed all of the support for conditional comments, but now if a CSS file had been conditionally loaded, it would actually get loaded for everything now, because like I just removed the browser's key and Backdrop add CSS, and so if you've specified it as IE only, it would get loaded for everything now. That's, I think, already IE specific style sheets. Like, I don't even think Core has any, for example. So I don't think that's a very common paradigm even now, but we should probably just be safe about that. And if browsers is specified, it should just like silently not output the file, because we just don't want IE specific styling to start getting applied. Yeah, so anyway, those are some cleanup issues. Indigo Zella also filed a pull request for updating CKEditor 4 to the very latest/last version, which would be a great idea. That is
6292. Sorry.
6292.
Yeah, sorry, Nate. Martin needs to step away sooner, so maybe we can discuss his issue first, so he can be relieved.
Yeah. Okay. So Martin, you want to talk about issue 2231, which is add a simplified array syntax for database connection information in settings.php.
Yeah. So the need for this arose because basically if you try to add via the installer a complex database password, then it can cause problems and doesn't even necessarily tell you what the issue is. And we've had a few things on the forum where people have been racking their brains and changing to a simpler password fixes it. And quite a while ago, I think it was Doc Wilmot suggested a much more simplified, which was just database equals array, and then the values. And someone raised it on the forum earlier this week, and I thought I'll have a little go at that. And so I've done most of it. And Greg's been providing feedback, but one area that is a bit of a sticking point is where we do the backdrop rewrite settings, and that function is really geared up for single line settings. It doesn't really cope with where we're doing array, and I'd kind of put in a little looking back in hindsight now, it's a little hacky way of doing it, which was I looked at how many lines there were and put in a counter so I could remove them. But Greg's sort of since pointed out that that's sort of not very robust, and basically if someone does something we're not expecting, it could delete things that we're not expecting it to delete, or not delete it, or not delete enough. So I think if I hand over to Greg to talk about his proposed approach, which is explained to me this afternoon and looks really positive, I think it could have wider benefits as well for how we do things in backdrop where we're doing stuff with settings. And I know sometimes when we've looked at updates with settings, it's very problematic to try and work out, but I think what Greg's proposing could make it easier to be able to see what to modify settings. So I'll hand over to Greg.
Yeah, thanks. So I started doing some research, and then I came randomly. I'm not sure if it was because I was working across multiple issues, reviewing other people's things and working on my old issues, and I came across this token get all function, which like the feature is called tokenizer, which is native to PHP since many versions ago. And what it does, it's sort of like it uses the Zend engine, whatever they call it, like the word, the lexic parser, something like that. They call it lexical scanner, which is basically it tokenizes certain things, and it does certain things that we can benefit from for free. So instead of using regular expressions like the way that we do now in the backdrop rewrite settings function, which we have to accommodate for so many things that might be unpredictable. Like even the regular expressions consider something to be a variable if the first letter of the first line of the line starts with a $sign, but someone might add space, like a single space or a tab, which is still valid PHP, but our function will choke because it doesn't anticipate that, right? And some people might, like if it's a big line, and which becomes more obvious now with the array format that the multi-line array format. But if you do like $variable equals, and then you hit enter and write the value underneath, it's still valid PHP. So PHP won't choke. It will continue reading it. It's just in multiple lines. So if someone were to do that, our code would not pick it up because it expects the value of the variable to be on the same line where the last semicolon goes. So our regular expressions are finicky in that way. If someone manually goes and edits anything in the settings PHP files, which could be either settings.php or settings.local.php, whatever, right? It will start choking on those things or not replacing things properly and causing issues. So this function, the function token get all, basically tokenizes chunks of the text the way that PHP will actually parse. Like it picks up what is a variable without having to use regular expressions, if conditions, whatever, right? And I've made enough progress, but not enough. Like I'm still in the debug space where I'm reading buffers and I'm writing, and it's much easier and more less prone to errors, more future proofed, I would say. I don't have a pull request for it, but I decided to start creating a draft of a message, like split it out to a different issue, because I thought maybe that could be a function, something like backdrop parse PHP or something like that, that then our function could use. Otherwise, I would file a pull request against Martin's and keep it within that same issue. But I would like to sort of like keep discussions separate. So yes, this is a heads up that there's progress. I'll be working on that over the weekend and when I'm spreading next week, and I hope to get some nice results out of it. But yeah, it looks very promising.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds good. The backdrop rewrite settings function is, I remember messing with that ages ago. It's really finicky and
Yeah.
fragile. The only reason why it works in any kind of reliable fashion is that at the time that the installer is run, it kind of assumes with a fair amount of accuracy that nothing has been changed in the settings.php file yet. So it doesn't need to deal with different syntaxes because it knows what settings.php is like before it starts doing the rewriting. But yeah, if you're right that if like there are small changes or whatnot, then it just like breaks right away. And it also really assumes that like rewriting the database settings line, like if the user has changed the database settings line in any way whatsoever, where it's like user : password at database server, it's all very much a very exact string. If they've modified that, then the installer doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just like, yeah.
And I showed Martin certain things, like if the password, like even if we asked, we could modify the regular expressions to anticipate multiple lines, right? But if the password contained a bracket, a square bracket, and a semicolon as part of it, then the regular expression would pick that as the end of the array where it's still reading the password. So that's a possibility there. So even if we tried to flatten the format of the array and add it in a single line, so that it's everything in a single line but in an array format, then someone might go and edit manually and use the shorthand, which is just brackets instead of the word array, right? Or someone might go and add a comment between the various keys in the array, and if you try to flatten it, then everything after the comment becomes a comment. So there's so many things that could go wrong here
with our regular expressions. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the reason this wasn't so much an issue in Drupal 7 is that it didn't provide an example database connection string. It just had like databases equals, and then it was empty, or it may have even been commented out. Like there wasn't any example at all. And the whole point of the way that we have it structured now is that it was intended to make it so that somebody opening settings.php could edit it easily. And this whole like password encryption or password encoding problem totally ruined our like what we were trying to do, which was make it easy to edit settings.php manually. So okay, yeah, I like where this is going. So the idea is that we remove the string example and we provide an array example instead, and backdrop rewrite what was it? Sorry,
Thanks.
backdrop rewrite settings can work with that multi-value array that is there as an example and then update it, right?
And not only with that, but any variable that because that function accepts a settings array, and then it looks for any setting that you want to replace on that settings.php file. So the assumption there was that all our settings were single lines. Now it would be able to handle multi-line variables that their definition span across multiple lines.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and
sounds great.
We were ignoring single line inline comments that start with a double dash / or doc blocks, but PHP also allows comments starting with a hashtag, and that parser, if someone just that is outside the Drupal and backdrop world comes and edits that PHP file and decides that they want to use a hashtag, which is totally valid, it won't choke on it. It would still understand and skip it. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, looking forward to that, Greg, as it comes together.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Great. Anything else, Martin, on that?
No, I think that's all. So we're just kind of waiting on Greg now before we can really get that to a point where it's ready. So.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin, for reviving
Thanks very much.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, bye.
See ya.
Okay, let's see here. Other issues that we've got on the docket today. I want to mention CSpell just because Greg brought it up beforehand that there's a slew of CSpell pull requests and issues: 6255, 6262, 6276. So all three of those issues need review to push them forward, because CSpell has been complaining a lot on pretty much every pull request that there's a bunch of spelling issues. And so these are kind of stopgap issues. There's a larger effort to move the CSpell dictionary out into the Backdrop Ops group in its own repository. But for now, we just want to fix the complaining that's happening on every single pull request, and then also work on that sort of parallel track of making it easier to maintain the CSpell dictionary in an external repository.
And when it comes to 6262, which is actually to add a list of disallowed words with suggestions when that becomes an option later. Funny enough, the pull request that Martin filed revealed that we have missed the section above the database and still mentions master and slave, which must have been something that we merged over the pull request that removed those things. And if we had CSpell with the forbidden words, it would just actually, because these things crept back to the code base, right? So it would help us keep these words out of our code base in the future.
Gosh darn it. All right, that's a great point too. Let's see, I also want to raise other failures that are happening consistently or frequently, and that's 6293. The layout upgrade path test is failing like 2 out of 3 times pretty much. And it's funny because it didn't used to happen with such frequency, which makes me think that this is one of those things that it is dependent upon like the update order execution, where it's like we added another update hook and it's made it so that the updates now execute in a different order in the testing, and it's that order is basically like predetermined by an algorithm that's like, hey, here's all the update hook numbers, and they're executing in an order in which it's not working now. So this is a puzzling issue. We're trying to figure it out. It seems to only happen when the tests are being executed. Nobody's been able to reproduce it by actually running an upgrade, which is problematic. But we've got some theories that are being tossed around there. Anyway, that's issue 6293. There's a lot of discussion in there, but everybody's just trying to figure out what's happening there. So Anybody
And I'm
that
not sure.
that is up for a challenge, that's an open question right now. What's happening there?
Yeah, and I'm not sure even if it like started happening when we switched from our tests from being 8.1 to 8.2, because it randomly fails in other PHP versions as well.
Yep.
So, and it always like an indication is that only a single set of PHP tests fails, and for a single PHP version. So it doesn't fail. Usually, when it's a legitimate failure, all three PHP versions fail. Now it randomly fails in one of them, which is like really puzzling, and it's not consistent either. Anyways,
Yep.
yeah, tricky.
Exactly. Let me see. We've got in the 126.2 milestone, that's next bug fix release, there's 27 closed issues, which also is awesome. We probably need to make a new release here pretty soon. But I'm trying to find. I know, maybe I don't know, but I remember that we added an update hook recently, like to system or user module or something like that, and that's why I think the increase in failures came from, is that there's another update hook that was added to system module, and that's made it so that the way that it calculates the update order has changed. That's my theory about why this is probably happening. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really think there's much more to discuss there other than than we're trying to figure it out. And for the time being, that means that test failures, like we don't need 100% test passing in order to merge pull requests. There's the cspell thing, and then there's this particular update test that fails sometimes, or often, I should say. That for now we're just ignoring it and continuing. All right. Let's see. I want to do a little update on CKEditor, because that's been progressing a lot recently. So CKEditor's end of life is next week. It's the 22nd, CKEditor 4. And we've got some issues that are in place. We actually have one, issue 6292, that is update CKEditor 4 to the last available version. We're about 3 versions behind on CKEditor, 3 minor versions, and this pull request just gets us totally up to date. Looks really good. It's marked as needs review, but yeah, thanks Indigo Zella for putting that together.
I think that
But
the last update that we've done was for a security thing as well. It was just a patch, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe, yeah.
yeah, I think so. So this ostensibly is the last version of CKEditor that is going to be released under the GPL. They supposedly, or not supposedly, they also have a separately licensed LTS, long-term support version of CKEditor 4, that if there are security vulnerabilities, they will make additional releases under their own LTS program. We'll see. It's probably going to happen that that they'll make a release to their LTS version, and we'll see like what the world does about porting. Like if there's a fix, like it's going to be really trivial to determine what the fix is and then to reapply that to the GPL version, and I just don't understand how that would be preventable. Like how the LTS whole thing would even possibly work. But
it's a paid service. We should mention, and for the record, because you said the last version of CKEditor, you meant CKEditor 4.
Yes, CKEditor 4. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think this particular issue, 6292, to update CKEditor 4 to the last open source version, that we should wait on getting out the 126.2 release to include this, because I think it's a nice housekeeping thing to do. But then after that, then I think we can kind of open the opportunity to like make the 126.2 release. I think that we're kind of at a point where we've accumulated a lot of fixes, and we should go ahead and get that out. It's also a nice long period in between our last release and January is far away, so it's obvious that we need to make another release. So so that's CKEditor 4. CKEditor 5 is looking great. I intended to make a new release before this meeting, but I guess I'll do it afterwards. But lots of progress over in Backdrop Contrib / CKEditor 5. It has a release. It's currently 0.9 alpha 3, but I think I'm ready to move that into like a 1.0 beta because it's in a really good spot. Greg, I've been going through a whole bunch of things that you'd filed. Let me see what these things were.
I saw the pings. I still didn't have time to check those. I think it was issue number 5 where I can't remember where it was now. But I'm
Yeah.
focused on the core issue queue, and sorry I didn't have time. Hopefully
Yeah.
have some time for that.
It's no problem. So we've kind of like nailed down the experience of using the editor. So inserting images, inserting links, using the backdrop dialog, uploading files, both like copy paste, like all of the things that the editing experience is done as far as we're really aware. And so this past week, I started working on the administrative experience, configuring the toolbar, making the vertical tabs work correctly, adding descriptions to things, adding some ARIA attributes and other accessibility things for configuring CKEditor 5. So that's great. It's really moved into like this thing is pretty well stable. We're also pretty sure, but not 100% confident that it's not going to mangle existing content. The HTML generic HTML support is fully configured out of the box, and it's there's no way to turn it off. Even it's just like it's going to be very permissive. Switching from CKEditor 4 to CKEditor 5, as far as we know, should be very content compatible. So yeah, it's looking really great, kind of across the board.
That's great. So the generic HTML support actually solved the problem.
Yeah, it seems to be working really well. One of the things that we added recently is that it's a little bit weird and it took more work than I was expecting. But before CKEditor 5 attaches, or actually, before it attaches, it saves the current value of the field. It attaches the editor, and then it immediately asks the editor to give it the HTML that comes back out of it, and then it compares the before value before the editor was attached and after the editor was attached to see if any damage occurred to the content. And if damage has occurred, then it detaches the editor and puts a warning above the field saying, attaching CKEditor 5 will reformat the content of this field. Click here to proceed. And so it makes it so that if you have existing content, let's say you edited your text format for filtered HTML and you changed it from CKEditor 4 to CKEditor 5, our objective is to make it so that on all of your existing content, when you hit edit, attaching the editor and then just hitting save won't corrupt the value in your body field. So it's possible that the editor might not attach. It'll give you a little warning, but you can still go ahead and save the node with other fields being modified without the body field getting botched by just the act of the editor attaching. So we have like there's generic HTML support, which prevents the content from getting mangled for the most part. But then we also have this check that makes extra sure that your content won't get mangled. If it does get mangled, it just doesn't attach and tells you, click here to attach the editor, and then be careful. So
are these messages like things that content editors will understand? I like I'm I'm a little nervous here, like attach the editor, which I'm thinking a lot of content editors will be like, wait, what? What does that mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to take a look at what the message actually says. I don't think it actually says attach. Let's see what it actually says. It says activating CKEditor 5 will reformat the content of this field. Click here to activate, I think is what it says. There's not actually a screenshot, but so I don't know. It's like, what does that actually mean? It's definitely a little bit intentionally vague because at this point, there's no way for us to actually, I mean, I guess we can see the before and after value, but it's like hard to, so far we don't have an interface for the users to like see what will actually change by attaching the editor. That would be another little layer of work. And even then, it's like the interface for like showing people differences is like a diffing interface, right? And I'm not sure that a normal editor would understand, well, A, HTML, and B, a diffing of an HTML content,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So
Well, I think sort of the binary choice would be whether to add more fur to the scare message. If they're, I'm it sounded a little bit like it was, don't worry about this. This won't hurt, and in fact, it might actually hurt. If they're not, so just something so that the first time through it would give them pause, give people pause until they kind of get it, and then they can choose to ignore scary messages later once they get familiar with it. I don't know.
yeah, well, I'd recommend
If we
you
can
try it
alter
out.
that, if we can alter that, that happens when they switch the editor from 4 to 5 in a single node, right? When they do that on a specific field, I should say, because there might be
Yeah,
multiple fields.
and it might not be
We
nodes.
can-
It's anywhere where
Yes,
CKEditor
yes. So
attaches.
if the thing supports revisions, we could be prompting them to say, just make sure you save a revision. If we can
Yeah.
alter that message, it's like things are going to change. Just make sure that you save a new revision so that you can, or maybe we can do it automatically for them and just label the revision. If revisions is enabled, label it as CKEditor 5 suites or whatever, and they can go back to it.
Yeah, it's not a
So,
bad idea.
so what would be the process for me to preview the user experience, just so I could throw in my opinions about it?
Install the CKEditor 5 module now as it is.
Yep.
There's a contrib
Just
module.
use Project Browser or download it with B or however you install a module, and just download the latest release of CKEditor 5. I'll make a newer release but the newer release is mostly like fixing the admin interfaces. So I think the current release is fine as well. Just to get a better idea of the changes that you'll likely see. One other minor just reformatting thing that will occur is that the before and after diffing, like it's kind of loose with what it considers things to be the same. Because I found out that there's funny things that happened, like CKEditor 4 self-closes its tag, like a BR tag, BR, and then it has slash before it closes the BR tag or image tag or HR tag. There's lots of tags that self-close. And CKEditor 5 doesn't self-close its tags anymore. And it kind of makes sense. Like XHTML is kind of dead. HTML5 is much more common now. We're not self-closing tags anymore. And so CKEditor 5, if activating it, will eliminate self-closing tags. It'll just like, even so, if you've had something in 4, it has self-closing tags. Editing it in 5 will immediately remove all the self-closing tags. But the diffing operation makes those things the same. And so it actually doesn't consider removing self-closing stuff to be a difference. It's like, that's fine because the content is not visually modified, right? It's just like internal is different. Same thing with attribute order, that we're having this issue that the order of attributes can change between editing from 4 to 5, and that also doesn't matter from a content perspective. It's the same content, even if the attributes have been moved around. So both of those
I mean, something
things.
I've noticed with CK editor and just WYSIWYG filters, forever is they like forever. I've noticed that they are happy to change the formatting of HTML. Like I'll have things in some indented style that that illustrates some structural concept. It's important, and then throw it into WYSIWYG, italicize something, pull it out, and suddenly it's all just one giant block, and all that visual logic is gone. So I imagine it still does that.
Yes, though we've improved things from where it was a month ago or so, where actually even in Drupal using CKEditor 5, CKEditor 5 by default just outputs one giant blob with no indentation at all, which I think is bad for a lot of reasons. For one, it makes diffing, like the changes, really difficult if it's all one line. And also like revision checking and stuff like that. Like it's not good to just output it all in one giant chunk like that, and it's hard to read, right? And so our module, as part of the comparison operations, it also consistently formats and white spaces it. But that does mean that any white space that you put in manually, it just doesn't care about. It gets lost. And with CKEditor 5 and its architecture, it would be really hard for us to maintain white space changes, because it does this thing where it's like it takes the source HTML, but then it makes its own internal representation, and then it takes the internal representation and then saves it back into the HTML. And in that process, the formatting is just completely lost. So yeah, we kind of did our best to format it nicely, but yeah, it's something that is just going to have to be the way that it is with CKEditor 5. Let's see, we are nearly out of time. There's a bunch more issues actually on our agenda. This doesn't normally happen, but we might not have time to cover them. Is there any in particular that you want to look at, Greg?
So 5090, which is the more or less link, we have direction. I have some feedback from Jen from a couple of weeks before during the dev meeting that we need to use theme suggestions. I just haven't embedded that feedback there, but it's looking good. I should have more time in the next couple of weeks to work on it. In the 5541 issue, which is SVG image support, we had some discussion, and IndigoZilla made some good points about the fact that we were adding a specific function. We are adding a sanitizer, and if we use the sanitizer by default, then adding the function as well sort of like says that we don't trust the sanitizer to do its job. Anyway, there's some feedback there. Some people might want to chime in whether it's a good idea or not. I'm ambivalent. And then I've listed 6148, which is sort of like a blocker or a soft blocker for certain other things that I'm working on. And this is a DX issue to just add another capability to theme item list, which is something that we've done in a previous release as well. Looking at D.org, the API site for D.org has a good thing that we don't have, and it has comments allowed in in its function or page that it has. And the page that has the theme item list function, there's heaps of discussions over the years, and a common pattern there is that people are trying to add IDs most usually, but also different attributes to the wrapper div. And the answer is always, you need to create a custom theme function, or you need to override this and that. So this has come up for me, and now recently Bugfolder jumped in to say that he's come across this issue multiple times. So my suggestion there is to just make it possible to add attributes to the wrapper attribute by adding another property there.
Yep.
it's looking pretty good. There's some feedback, mostly objections that Robert has about the inline comments, and I'll fix those. And then I have two issues that are correlated. 2858. Sorry, I'm trying to be as quick to summarize this, and then we can wrap things up. 2858 and 6290 are both related issues. 2858 started as updating the dependency message that we get in update PHP when we're doing database update, because it's not very helpful and it's confusing. Like, it shows you a success message and a warning that something has succeeded, and then a warning that something failed. The result, so we had some back and forth recently because this issue was filed back in 2017. We had some interactions with Laren, and he suggested that we tone down the noise that we added. I suggested that we take advantage of the theme function that we use for the status report, which we are already trying to do for our install PHP. So yeah, the summary of this is just we need some people to test and chime in and say if things look better with the most current implementation. And 6290 suggests basically that we remove the sidebar in update PHP and installer PHP and move the various steps that we have in the wizard to be horizontally instead of vertical.
I like that.
Yeah, in order, so I've already pushed a pull request that tries to retain the styling that we had previously, but my CSS skills are not good enough to make it work when there's multiple items. So I'm taking an alternative approach, and I've which is I haven't filed a pull request for that. So as soon as I finish it, which I expect to be done over the weekend, I'll file a second pull request, and people can either say, let's go with this, or try to fix the CSS in the previous one to make it look consistent with what we had before. Either way, I think that it's not a good idea to waste all that sidebar there and squeeze the main content of these pages for the sake of, just showing where people are at in the wizard.
Yeah,
It
that's
works.
great. Yeah, because I imagine that I see how this is all related, that when we show like Backdrop can't be installed for some reason, like the message is really big and takes up a lot of room because it's the status report table, and yeah, it just doesn't fit with the sidebar there. So yeah, it all makes sense. I like it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
And then the last one that we already discussed is 2231, which is the issue that Martin brought up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap up for today then. Thanks, Greg, for running through those last couple of ones. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. And yeah, we'll actually, if things come to pass, this weekend, the 18th, we'll be doing some work. Probably, as Luke mentioned, no Backdrop dev meeting next week because it's Thanksgiving, but we'll also be doing a sprint the following weekend. So lots of sprinting opportunities in our future. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you guys.